The Fresno Focus Radio Hour. This is the No Focus Radio Hour. Comedy and insight from the greatest minds in Fresno. A Lightomine Media production. That's right. This is the No Focus Radio Hour, the number one independent podcast in the Central Valley. We're number one because of my pronunciation. Thank you for listening, and thank you for telling a friend. The No Focus Radio Hour is available anywhere podcasts can be found, including YouTube, Rumble, and your home smart speakers. Soon to be on Rumble. Remember to subscribe and leave a review. It helps others discover our show. And while you're reviewing, keep in mind that 5 stars is the correct number of stars. If you give us a 5-star review, or actually any review, we'll pick one at the end of every show and we read it. And eventually we're going to run out. You're going to get tired of reading the same reviews, so leave more reviews. If you enjoy the show, share it with your friends. But if you hate it, share it with your enemies. Check out our site, nofocusradio.com, for exclusive content and to vote on Don's polls. Find us on social media. Our handle is at nofocusradio. Find the rest of our stuff at lightominemedia.com.
Gonna hit the ground running, just to my favorite podcast,
Fresno. That's right. Woohoo! This is the No Focus Radio Hour, the number one independent podcast in the Central Valley. It's made for those who live in the Central Valley, for those who miss the Central Valley, for those who long to live in the Central Valley, and for those who
are glad that we have no more water because it's rushed all out to sea in the Central Valley after all that rain.
Jeez. Now, we don't have our entire beautiful cast of characters. Today, we have with us Eric the Doorman.
Hey, I tell you, it does. I think we're both a little off because of that.
It is.
You know what I mean?
Feels weird.
Yeah, that's why even the singing, everything was just a little off. It almost feels, now don't take this the wrong way. It almost feels like we're kind of cheating on the other. It's like, it's just the two of us.
Just the two of us. And it's going to be great, though.
We can make it if we try.
It's going to end up being the best podcast.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Nice. Yeah.
I think so. But we do miss Dawn and
whatever
Stu,
the other guys' names are.
Sure. Hey, and over there we also have behind the board the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Johnny Knobs.
Hey-o! Once upon a time.
Wait a minute. Is this your story? Why they call you Johnny Knobs?
That's right.
I didn't even get to ask.
True. Yeah. So this is a very true story.
Let's start that again. Hey Johnny. I was at the grocery store the other day, and this guy was outside. And he was saying, hey, do you have a buck? And I said, no, but I can tell you how Johnny got his name. Let me go talk to him.
Really?
Yeah, let me go ask him, and then I'll come right back. So he's waiting for me. So let me know, and I'm going to go tell him
here
right
it
now.
is. This is the true story. Once upon a time, there was a young boy named Johnny. He was known for his love of turning knobs, whether they were on a stereo, a door, or a kitchen appliance. Everywhere he went, he couldn't resist the urge to turn knobs. One day, while playing with his friends at the playground, he discovered a large knob on a piece of equipment that he had never seen before. Excitedly, he turned the knob with all of his might. To his surprise, the knob came off in his hand, and he was left holding it triumphantly. From that day on, his friends started calling him Johnny Knobs as a nickname, and it stuck. As he grew older, he embraced the nickname, and he even used it as his stage name when he became a famous DJ. He even had a custom knob-shaped DJ controller built for him to continue his knob-turning passion. He was well known as Johnny Knobs, the man who controlled the volume. The end.
Nice,
there it is.
Nice.
That was written by my good friend, Chat GPT.
That should be a regular in the show.
Just get the Chat GPT story.
Get a Chat GPT story.
I like it. And whatever we want to talk about, we'll just throw it into the AI and let it tell us a story.
Yeah. Maybe it could just do the whole podcast for us.
Actually, I wouldn't joke about that because soon we're not going to have a job. Because very soon.
Oh, wait a minute. Is this a job? Are you getting paid for this? Because
I'm losing money. It's a negative job.
Okay.
Yeah. It's definitely a negative job. Speaking of money and podcasts and all that sort of stuff, have you been following the whole situation with Steven Crowder and Daily Wire and all this?
Kind of, sort of. Yeah. I kind of came into it. Now, I don't know. I'll put it this way. I never really watched Crowder that much. So, I mean, I've maybe seen a couple things from him in the past. I'm not really, like, into Crowder. I'm not really. It's not that I'm not a fan. I just really don't.
You just haven't gotten into it.
Just haven't gotten into him.
Yeah.
But I have seen there's a lot of drama.
Sure.
Right? So maybe catch the audience up to what's going on if they haven't heard it.
Absolutely. So I'm I wouldn't say I'm like an everyday Crowder. I don't watch him all the time. I started watching Crowder, though, probably in 2010. I think he's really funny. I think he's great. I think he's smart. He's become a bit more like bro humor more recently than he used to. So I sometimes it's a little bit much, and I'm like, nah.
So he had a show called Louder with Crowder.
Louder with Crowder. He still has the show.
It's a podcast. It's a video cast type thing.
So Steven Crowder, actually, he really talented guy. He was started working in Hollywood at like the age of 12. He was a voice on the show Arthur.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah. So he played, I forget what, a bear or something, and started doing comedy and that sort of stuff. And was always kind of conservative. Eventually became a big YouTube star at the age of 16. Him and his brother became really big YouTube stars when YouTube was just starting out.
What, they just do like stunts, or they do
impressions?
Oh, okay.
Like early YouTube stuff was more like impressions, comedy skits.
Okay.
Just kind of funny stuff.
Kind of like a couple of goofy guys.
Yeah, he's like a pretty good impressionist, so just a lot of fun stuff like that. And eventually he kind of got famous, got picked up by Fox News. He was a Fox News contributor. Got fired from Fox News at a pretty early age, like when he was like 20-something, for criticizing, I forget who, maybe.
Was it Bush back then? Or
no, it was one of the
Obama?
other co-hosts who's...
Oh my God. Well, there's a ton of co-hosts. Hannity.
It was probably, it was Hannity, I think. He did something and made fun of Hannity, and the next thing you know, he was let go.
It's like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
You know?
So then he started Louder with Crowder, which was like started off as like a YouTube channel, and conservative kind of talk show, podcast, that sort of thing. Eventually, I don't know where he was with, but he had a thing called Mug Club.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, and Mug Club was just, if you paid for Mug Club, you got your Louder with Crowder mug, and the idea was on YouTube, you would always be able to get like the first 30 minutes of a show.
So it was like a membership, essentially.
But you could only watch the rest of it with Mug Club memberships. So that's how that worked. I've been a Mug Club subscriber for a long time. Eventually, he merged with CRTV, which then merged with The Blaze.
Oh, okay.
I was a Blaze subscriber as well, so it was nice for me because when Louder with Crowder merged with CRTV and then The Blaze, I could stop paying for Mug Club because I was getting it with my Blaze subscription.
Oh,
so I was like, sweet.
So it was included.
I just could pay. The Blaze was great for a while. They had pretty much everybody I liked listening to or watching all on one platform. And it was like, sweet, $90 a year, I can get all of this, as opposed to paying for like CRTV and Mug Club and, GBTV, and I could just get it all. It was the best. The thing was, The Blaze has a very different business model than a lot of the other big conservative kind of news. People like the Daily Wire, for instance, which is how this all comes together.
Okay.
The Blaze's model was you come join with us, and we get a kind of non-exclusive. While you're with us, you can't go sell your name or your stuff to other people.
Okay.
But we don't own all your content. Like, it's ours while you're with us. But if you leave, it's your content.
Take it.
Because essentially their idea was, we're not paying for all of your studio stuff. Like, we're not, as a business, The Blaze wasn't like, hey, Steven, here's $100 million to, build your stuff. It was, hey, you already got your stuff. We'll help out.
Yeah.
We'll help promote you, and we'll do all of that. But, a certain amount of all the revenue you make comes to us. Everything else you do, that's yours. Like, if you want to do your YouTube videos and all of that, you get to make that money, no problem. But, the subscription fees all come to The Blaze, and it gets divvied out. So,
okay.
Crowder joined with them. His...
How long was he with him? Because, to be honest, when all this dropped, I didn't know when news dropped recently with Crowder. Yeah. I didn't know that he was even with The Blaze, to be honest.
Yeah, at least a couple of, probably, I don't know, at least 5 years, maybe.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotta have been at at least, probably, yeah.
Now, he left the Blaze.
So he leaves the Blaze.
The contract, I just assume, ends, right? It's kind
of
amicable. It's not nothing. There's no drama there.
He has no drama with them.
Okay.
From what I understand, I could be wrong here, but from what I picked up, there was like a chance to renew. I think the Blaze is probably changing business models in a certain way because they're changing things up. And so it was very amicable, though, and he just said, all right, you know what, that's fine. I'm just going to kind of be a free agent for a while and do my own thing.
Okay.
Cool, no problem.
Yeah.
So during this time, he starts, I guess, getting offers from all the other big conservative media out there.
Mm-hmm.
And
because people have to understand his what's his subscriber? It's like how many subscribers? 600,000.
I think he has 600,000. I think he has active 300. He has 600 people, I think, on his mailing list.
Okay.
So some of the things that I'm careful about is every time I like these guys, but they're always inflating their numbers no matter what. So he says he has 600 people. I think that's 600,000 people who have signed up to say, I want to join your service.
Okay.
Now, because essentially he left the Blaze and he put an email that said, hey, if you want to come join my new service, go to Mug Club Forever or whatever and sign up. I think 600,000 people said, okay, cool, I want to know. Like, I was one of them. Yeah, sure, I want to know where you're going. Okay. Now, however, if he goes and starts his own thing and that's also $99, I might not join because I'm already paying for the Blaze and Daily Wire. I don't want to pay for another thing.
But if he goes to another place, let's just say he's out there shopping around, he's got his content now, plus he's got possibly these new subscribers or subscribers. Mm-hmm. Some new, like you said, there's a lot of crossover with other companies. But okay, so anyway, so he's out shopping around.
And apparently what happens is, he's gets an offer from the Daily Wire.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently what happens is a week or two ago, Steven Crowder posts a video saying this is the kind of contracts that big conservative media does, big con. And he's really angry about this.
Yeah.
And he essentially reads through these contracts. He doesn't state who it's from. And he says, it's predatory. It's essentially like a slave contract. And I think he actually has a point. His point was the contract stated that he could do whatever. However, he had to do 192 of these daily shows a year.
Yeah, he's contracted to do these shows.
And now part of the difference is what's tricky is people are like, yeah, but that's your job. Okay, that's fine. However, one of the things that Crowder does that he doesn't do daily shows all the time. So there'll be like a week or two sometimes where there are none of these daily shows.
Oh, okay.
But what he's doing is he's traveling and they're putting together like these mini 2-hour Change My Mind episodes.
Yeah, those Change My Mind where he's talking to people.
Yeah, so he's traveling around. He's doing
he's getting content. He's filming
getting
content, and then they got to edit it and throw it all together.
Right, it's a big deal. So, but this contract would have said, you have to do these 192. Now, if you want to do the Change My Minds, go for it, but that's not part of what we want.
Yeah.
Like, that would just count as one of your... So
they want guarantees that they're going to get 192 episodes.
So he was upset about that because he's like, problem essentially limits me from ever doing the other things that I do.
Yeah.
Because part of when you watch his shows, if you ever watch his shows, there's a lot of big skits. Like, they put big money into these things. Like, they probably drop, I don't know, I got to assume tens of thousands of dollars into some of these. Like,
wow.
I know the Change My Mind things with the travel and the crew. I mean, I'm assuming you're dropping 50 to 60 grand in each of those.
Jeez.
I'm assuming for like when he does like almost every episode has like a music video or something, almost like Weird Al style. Those I'm assuming probably also cost 40 to 50 grand. So these are expensive.
So it's a pretty high production show. It's not just like
show.
some guy with a camera, running around doing YouTube content.
So it's high production and in time. So he had a problem with that. The other problem was Steven Crowder is one who does not shy away from saying things that people do not like. So he has been demonetized on YouTube for years. He's constantly banned on YouTube. He's actually one of the ones who has been fighting this in courts for a long time. This has been a big deal.
Okay.
So he gets this contract from this random people, from somebody, big conservative media company, that says you have to do 192 shows. And if you are ever, if you get a strike from YouTube, you get docked 25% of your pay for that time. If you get banned, it's another 25%. If you get a strike from Twitter, that's another one. If you get a strike so all of these strikes So it actually adds up. He points out that if you got all of those, you'd actually be losing 110% of your pay. You'd actually owe them money.
Yeah.
If you lose your sponsors, you would. And so he's angry about this.
Well, I think he was saying too. It was kind of his point was that it's a way. I don't know if he actually said it's a way, but I think a roundabout point was it's a way for them to control you also.
In a way, because
you have to watch what you say now. You have to censor yourself.
It would change his show completely. One of the reasons that he is fun to watch is because he does not hold his punches. Now, one of the reasons that sometimes it's uncomfortable to watch is because he doesn't hold his punches, right?
Yeah.
So, and I want to bring this up to people who are listening. If you've obviously listened to our show, we are not a type of show. We're not vulgar. We're not, dropping F-bombs. We're not claiming science. We are, we'll bring things up. We'll discuss it. This show that you're listening to right now currently has 2 strikes against it on YouTube. So, I mean, if you can imagine our show having strikes against it, now imagine a guy like Steven Crowder, who is loud, openly says, calls out vaccine stuff. And, so he hasn't been monetized for 3 years. So right off the bat, if he signed this contract, 1, he would lose pretty much all. He wouldn't have any money. But 2, he'd be in violation of the contract, which means that he would have to fix it, he would have to change his show completely. So he was very upset because essentially what he's saying is big conservative media has been saying, rightfully so, right? We have to get away from big tech. Big tech is censoring us. Their algorithms. We talk about that on this show all the time.
Yeah.
We can't find videos on YouTube that we want to look up. I have to use like Mojeek search engine because they don't censor stuff like basic stuff. Like I swear I saw this news article. I can't find it.
Yeah.
So his point is conservative media criticizes those people, yet big conservative media says, hey, if you want to play the game and become a successful conservative media star, you have to abide by big tech's rules. Because if you say the things that big tech doesn't want you to say, well, you get a strike, you lose all your money.
So essentially it's where's the alternative here?
Right. So he comes out and says this. A bunch of guys from the Daily Wire come out and start saying, they kind of outed themselves.
Well, Jeremy did. Jeremy Boring, who, for anybody who doesn't know, he's a CEO of Daily Wire, and he basically made a video. I mean,
made a 55-minute video
talking about was talking about us. That was our contract. Here's the deal. Here's my point of view. Here's my side of it. Right.
And so this is where I come in as somebody who does business. I've been in the business world for a long time. I have had to look at a lot of contracts. I have signed and denied a lot of contracts and term sheets. This is what my thought is. I think Steven Crowder was totally fine in his first video, completely legitimate. I think that was fair and a really good point. Because honestly, it makes me go, oh crap, I didn't realize that. Like, and I have thought to myself, like, sometimes these guys aren't talking about things that I think they should be talking about a bit harder. But now I know why. Because really, they don't. Their source of revenue was all coming from the big tech that they are talking. That they are themselves saying is censoring, and they're censoring themselves. So I understand Steven's thing. Now I also understand the Daily Wire, Jeremy Boring's point of view, which is, hey, look, we can't do anything we want because then we don't have a platform. Like until there is a YouTube that doesn't censor us, how else are we going to make money?
They have to kind of play by the rules.
So we have to play by the rules somehow. We have to kind of sneak in and be the sensible media company because they're the biggest conservative media company, right? Like, and they did that for a reason because they are able to be on all of those platforms. And I get that it's his business; he can do what he wants. So I get that. So he's like, look, Steven, if you don't want to sign the contract, that's fine. So I get that. What I think then happened was dumb. Just Steven Crowder then gets on his own show and plays a recording that he recorded with his friends, a private conversation.
Yeah.
And plays it on the radio and starts saying this is what he said about this, and this is what he said about, which I think was a little bit petty because at that point I just think, look, Steven, you made your point. You told us you don't need to then get he got like upset that they were in a way trying to make it out about money.
Yeah.
Because that is one of the, they were like, oh, Steven didn't like it because he wasn't making enough money. So I think he got a little bit upset and made a really stupid move. Okay. Because now there's a big fight within conservative media.
Yeah, everybody's divided now. Well, okay, because
not good.
The other things about this too was he made a good point. Like you're saying in the beginning, the point also was that he's a big enough guy where maybe he can absorb this or not. I mean, I think his contract said it was like $50 million for 5 years.
Yeah.
And then people are saying, yes, if you break that down though, with all the production costs, he has to. Yeah.
So he has. If you think about him, he has a 30-person team that works with Louder for Crowder Corporation, because it's not just him in a garage, right?
Yeah.
He has a 30-person production team, all making a living. So you can imagine,
and you got taxes on top of that. You got,
as a business, you're paying for health insurance. You're paying for, and then you go do travel expenses. So as a business, $10 million a year with 30 people it's
not that much.
It's not that much.
I mean, it's going to be really thin to probably spread it.
Yeah.
To do a show or do the level of show he's doing.
Yes.
With just that amount of money without putting in his own money.
Yeah, he's probably, himself is probably making a couple $100,000 a year.
And then you take on the penalties that he would be tagged. I mean, that takes away money from
so the show gets exactly.
And the other point too was the fact that, he can kind of maybe do this himself, but there are younger up and coming people, personalities who may sign these kind of predatory type, what he saw as a predatory type contract. Right. That could really hurt that, because what they also in there, they had the guy locked in, they own his content.
Yeah.
I mean, he's locked in there and he may leave, but they still own that content.
Yep.
So he's thinking if there's a lot of younger guys that are coming up just trying to get with an organization, and these are kind of predatory, was I think his thought on that too.
And I mean, I get this. So like just coming from us doing this show, some things. So he was just on Timcast, which is for those of you out there, it's like it's a podcast that's almost as good as our podcast. If you like us, just stick listening. Don't go check him out. He's whatever.
We should support these other guys. I think everybody knows Tim Cass.
He's all right. Yeah, he's just garbage. He's a garbage person. I'm just kidding. So Tim
not
Pool,
jealous at all, are we?
Tim Pool started as he was an Occupy Wall Street journalist who was a big pro Occupy Wall Street guy, and somewhere along the way he became kind of conservative. I don't actually understand.
I think he's more libertarian.
Pretty libertarian.
But I think everybody sees that as conservative now.
Yeah,
if you're libertarian, really. Because and to be honest, I think it makes strange bedfellows. Isn't that what they say? I mean, because,
it kind of does, yeah.
The situation does, because, you have kind of these conservatives and libertarians coming together on similar views now.
Yeah, and they really, for the most part, they are very similar. If you're the more conservative you are, the more libertarian you become.
I think almost the only difference would maybe be religion at this point.
There's some religion stuff. There's some, I think there's fine lines with like abortion type things and some personal freedoms. Like very hard libertarians want essentially no government. Like it depends.
Yeah.
If you're
well, that's true. They're more kind of anarchist.
You're almost anarchist. Like I am close to being a hard libertarian. Yeah. The things that there are then, of course, things where you start reading like into really deep libertarianism, and you go, okay, that would just create pure anarchy, which I don't want. Yeah. I don't want that. So, anyways,
so going back to Tim, so he became famous. He became prominent in the last few years. I mean, he was on everybody's show. Seems like he's been everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
And the guy works hard, and he's created a podcast, created a kind of a broadcasting network, I think, for himself.
Yeah, started on YouTube. I think he has like 10 YouTube channels.
Wow, that many, really?
Yeah,
wow.
That's where he has like
crazy
Timcast IRL, Timcast Daily. Also, a good, but terrible name. Timcast is just like Timcast IRL.
Crazy,
I'm like,
right?
What? How did you get famous
in real life or something? Right?
I
mean, it's like I didn't know what that was at first. But so he had. Well, here's the thing. He first had. And he said he didn't have it on purpose. She was already scheduled. He had Candace Owens on right before Steven Crowder came on. Now, Candace Owens was already scheduled way before any of this happened. So it's like he wasn't planning this, but it just happened this way. So he has Candace Owens on there. And I listened to that show, man, and she lit up Steven Crowder.
Yeah.
I mean, she tore him up. Now, of course, he wasn't there to defend himself or anything, but she had her opinions.
I feel like she got personally hurt.
Yeah, I didn't understand that.
And I didn't understand it either. What my wife, Bree, who is very smart, she pointed out that Bree kind of read it like this, the whole situation, that by Steven saying these contracts are predatory and, they're kind of slave contracts, whatever, Bree said, well, he's essentially saying everybody who has then signed one is an idiot. And I was like, oh, see, You never would attach it.
I
never attached those things. And the fact, and I think that's how Candace took it, which is like, if you're saying that we can't do this and we're slaves to these contracts, then what you're saying is that everybody who's under those contracts is also a slave to those things and is too stupid to have.
Well, because here, let's be honest. I mean, same thing. I mean, I listened to it and I'm with you because I don't know what Candace's who knows who's got what contract. So I don't know if the same contract that they gave Crowder, know, or actually it's not a contract. What was it called? It was some agreement or something. It was he used another term.
It's a term sheet.
It's a term sheet. Thank you. So it's not an actual contract.
Yeah, it's for those of you who don't know,
negotiation.
A term sheet. You give a term sheet. You're able to then possibly negotiate the term sheet.
Yeah,
it's the precursor to what they give to a lawyer to write a contract. If you can.
So you come to terms,
and then you get a contract,
and then you get the contract and sign it based on that. So it gave him a term sheet. Now I don't know, like I said, any of these other guys, who knows what they signed and what their term sheets were and what their contracts are.
Right.
But the way I think she did get upset, but she kind of outed herself because she said it's basically the same one contract that she saw. And it's like, well, okay, but he never said who it was. He never said anything.
Right.
So she kind of outed it, and maybe she was upset that she did sign that contract after all. I don't know. Maybe there's something underneath that, but she was very upset with him, and she kind of not her points were. I understood her points, and I wouldn't say she shredded him like, she had all the great points and just completely blew him out of the water. But I mean, she had some good points. But at the same time, yes, I did think she did take it very personal and was more of an attack on him, whereas I think he was more just saying, hey, Big Con. And that was the other thing, too. We'll get to that in a minute. But he was saying that Big Con is out there, and they're not so... they're not actually the alternate media that we think they are, and just know this. Okay, and then so she did that, and then right after that, they were able to get Steven Crowder in because they wanted to talk to him directly. And I think the Timcast, I think they're really good at that. They kind of do. They'll pull different people in.
He is good at that because he is kind of very in the middle. So people trust him to be like a mediator.
He's almost like a more right. Leaning Joe Rogan.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. Because Joe Rogan will have everybody on. He'll listen to him and he'll talk to him.
Ask the questions.
Ask questions. Not necessarily he does have opinions, but then Tim is a little bit more right than Joe, but right leaning, I should say. Anyway, so he had Steven Crowder on, and what did you think about that? Did you see that? You saw that show?
I did. I haven't finished it. I'm like an hour and a half in. Okay. So
yeah, those are long shows.
No long shows.
3 hours. Yeah.
I thought. Same sort of thing. Certain things that Steven said. I'm still stuck on this. I agree with the notion that I don't think I agree with what Steven is saying, that in theory, we shouldn't be needing to control what we say because of YouTube. And it really hit home because of our own podcasts.
Yeah.
I can't even, just so you guys know, I don't even know why we have strikes. They just said because of violent rhetoric.
Well, they mentioned two different shows.
Shows.
To take it personal here, they mentioned two different shows, and one of them was because of misinformation.
And we don't know what.
And we don't, what misinformation?
I asked for a review, and I said, I'd love to know what. And I wrote in the review, a long, lengthy review. I said, everything we say on our show, and this is what makes me angry, because I personally take a ton of time before and after every show to make sure I have show notes for everything.
Yeah, so you do.
Is not. It's not like the other. And I'm not. The guys come in. We talk. We hang out. They leave, and that's awesome. And then I spend extra time digging in to make sure. And for YouTube to say you have misinformation, I'm going to know what time about everything I said, and I don't. And if you listen to our shows, I make sure to say. Even if I say something like fact, I say, and source that I'm saying is in the show notes, check the show notes. I do that on purpose because that way we don't have misinformation. Now, if I'm saying something that I read as fact, at the very least, I'm saying it not out of my own mind. I'm saying it because a reputable magazine, journal, or news station has said it. Mm-hmm. In which case, are you going to YouTube ban CNN because they have said misinformation? Like, I got the article from, but no, they'll just say misinformation. And when I ask what part of the show, they said they would review it, and they just came back and said, sorry, misinformation. They didn't tell me what, still.
Well, and I'll vouch for that. I mean, like you say, we kind of come in, and I think we do a pretty good job of kind of watching, and it's not that we do have to edit ourselves to a point. I mean, we can't just go all crazy and
sure.
know, I mean, but you do a great job, and I'm commending you for that. I mean, you do an awesome job. You're taking notes, you're doing it as we're podcasting,
right?
And you're
just to make sure,
everything just to make sure. And we get these strikes. And I will say on top of this, I know we're getting a little away from the Crowder thing, but I will say on top of this too that, I no evidence. I mean, I just heard, I'm always on YouTube. I mean, most of my content I get is from YouTube or I'm listening to podcasts.
Sure.
And a lot of times. And there has seemed to be a purging on YouTube recently of shows. I've heard of people saying that their content is getting wiped from YouTube. So this is probably a way they're doing it. So they probably set up their algorithm. Doesn't matter what you say or if you have the proof to back it up. They're just going to take it off. And then, especially for smaller shows like us, we don't have the Steven Crowder money to go and fight it, to have a lawyer, a full-time lawyer fighting it or someone fighting it.
Yeah, so you just lose.
So you just lose because we can't sit there and be in contact. We got lives. I mean, we can't sit there all day and be in contact with YouTube, trying to figure out what's going on. So So I think, Steven, I don't know his motivation on this. I hope it was for good in the sense of that he's worried that, these alternative sources are not, he's thinking maybe they're not as alternative as what they're selling themselves as, and he wants to make sure to have a free place to discuss things, because this is the problem. I mean, the censorship has become so huge now on any platform.
Right.
It is a big, huge issue. So I'm hoping that's where he's coming from. Yeah. But anyway, yes, he did make that. He did record that phone call, and that's the one bit, man. I heard
Me
that.
too.
I was like, oh man.
And when you watch it, it's just so like it's because I would be so much more on his side of this thing if he hadn't recorded their phone call.
And not only that, but they also found out, not uncovered, but they also found out that he had actually bought Big Con, the domain, I think, before any of this came out. So I don't know.
That to me is not too big of a thing.
I agree with you.
The negotiations, remember, it's not like these negotiations happened in the last couple of weeks. They've been going on for months now. Yeah. So that to me is like a whatever, because
he might have already kind of been like, all right, like maybe he's getting a lot of these crappy offers.
Exactly.
And he's like, listen, I'm not going to put up with this.
I think so that's a big part. I think it's from everybody. Then it just happened. Then it's like that was the final straw.
But like you say, the problem, the other thing that I think you're starting to go the other direction is that it's causing this huge split. And then here we go again. Every time it seems like that a side gets some momentum, and we get some platforms, and you got Elon, with Twitter, and you've got, and I'm just saying that these platforms are starting to open up a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then, and there's other voices now that you can hear, and there are companies that are doing good, and it gives smaller podcasters or just anybody, people in this space. It gives the smaller guys a little bit of what's the word I'm looking here for? A little bit of hope, right? Yeah. It's like hey, something is happening. We can break through. There's cracks. We can get through the ceiling.
Exactly.
Right? And then you see this happen, and it just like starts to shred that. And
one of the things that listening to that Timcast pod, so being in business, and having taught media and all this stuff, I know quite a bit about. I have to buy ads, and I understand how it works with buying ads on social and getting the 8-second views. But one of the things that was pretty discouraging for a show like ours was the thing that I found probably the most enlightening about this whole situation is because of this rift, it has brought up people talking about how this industry works. So one of the things that I learned just listening to that last Timcast one was they were talking a lot about like how ad purchasing, because it's a struggle getting ads for our podcast For those of you out there, that's why we ask you to, if you can donate, it would be great, because getting ads is impossible. When we started podcasting, 2012.
Wow, yeah.
Crazy is that, man? We started this 2012. Back then, there wasn't a lot of podcasts. That was at the time when I would talk to people and say, hey, I have a podcast. And they'd say, what's that? I'm like, oh, it's like a radio show. They say, how do I listen? I say, well, you get an RSS feed and you download it, and then you can get it onto iTunes, and you get your iPod and you plug it in and you transfer. And they were like, you idiot.
Yeah, it's too hard. It's too much.
It's too hard. But even back then, we could get sponsors. Even back then, we'd go to people and I'd say, hey, because having 1,000 or 2,000 listeners was a big deal.
Yeah.
Now the problem is that podcasts have turned into, I don't know if you guys know how podcast advertising works. You get dollars based on the thousands of downloads. So I'll pull it up right now. Average podcast ads cost per 1,000. Just so you guys know. The average 25-second ad on a podcast now is $10 per 1,000 downloads.
Wow.
So you guys have to understand that you have to have 100,000 downloads to make $1,000.
That is insane. And then how much of that goes in taxes?
Oh, exactly. So, and then think about this. Here's the second part of this, though. You're not making that money, all of it, because every download, the more downloads you get, the more bandwidth you have to pay for. So, we have bandwidth up to a certain amount of downloads. Once you start getting big downloads, you have to start paying a big host like Cashfly, and you have to start paying them a lot more money to get it's not like when you have a podcast, it's not just sitting in the internet. Every time it gets downloaded, it's sitting on a server somewhere, and you listen and it's streaming. The more streams and downloads you have, those servers, those companies that host the servers start saying, hey, you owe us money, or else you can't get the stuff. So you say you hit the 100,000 listens, you make $1,000. Okay, well, and that's per episode, mind you. So that's per episode. It's not like, oh, I got 100,000 listens this last month, let me get $1,000. It's no. That's per episode. So that was a part of it was, though, this is what was, so it said that's part one of it. It used to be, hey, I got a couple thousand listeners. I could go to a local place and say, hey, guys, look, I have 3,000 listeners in Fresno. And those are people in town who like what I'm doing and they trust me. For $100 a month, I'll talk about your stuff.
Yeah.
Now they're going to say, well, no, because for $100, I could go get somebody who has 10,000 listens. So why would I pay you with 3,000? So
and then not only that, you're also now competing with businesses that go out there and look for people that do. Yeah, that kind of play the middleman.
The thing that then really sucked, though, is on this most recent Timcast, I'm getting to the point now, sorry guys for bearing with me here, was that he spoke about how, and this is the same thing that all companies do, is that you pay for listens. So when people say, hey, look, I have, 500,000 listens, purchase an ad on my radio show versus the No Focus show, they're going to go purchase the ad on the 500,000 listens. However, I can pay for those listens. In fact, there's a new I got reached out to just the other day, and this is actually a program we use, Headliner. I use these to send clips of our audio show to YouTube.
Okay.
Headliner.app has a new service, which is a very cool service if you have the money to pay for it. What you do is audio to audience. What they do is you pay them money. It's the easiest way to capture your audience members. What happens is I create 15, 20-second podcasts. And what they do is as somebody is using Headliner to do their podcasts or doing anything like that, they will make them, instead of showing a loading screen, they will play 8 to 10 seconds of our podcast.
Interesting.
Which counts as a listen. So all of a sudden, our listens.
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah.
So what people don't understand is that when somebody says they have 500,000 listens, they probably have
maybe
a
half
fraction of that.
Okay.
The rest are
these ads
that count as listens.
Interesting.
And this is a thing that people do in marketing both ways. Sometimes when you do ads, you will get like YouTube has a way to do ads where you can either get charged by how many people view it, right? So and they'll say at 8 seconds we count it as a view.
Okay.
So somebody watches your video for 8 seconds, then we are going to charge you $1 for that YouTube ad. So what a lot of companies do is they say, great, we're going to choose that option for our ads. And then they put all the information possible into the first 7 seconds. So it's like 5 or 6 seconds, quick ad. Hey, check us out. Listen to our show. We're at nofocusradio.com. Thanks.
Yeah.
Now there's more content after that, but you don't need it. People skip it. So you almost never get charged.
Well, yeah, and I've noticed that too. Most of the ads now are those. They're like maybe 5 seconds or less. I mean, there's
so
you know,
there's a reason people do these sort of things. So the same thing is true where, let's say we had somebody who gave us investor money. Or let's say we all said, okay, cool, guys, we're all going to put $2,000 of our own money into our show. And we're going to pay to get our listenership higher.
Okay.
And we're going to all dump $2,000 into, some podcast ads to get our listens up. And then we all of a sudden it looks like we have 300,000 listens. And then we go to the big podcast guys and we say, hey, we have 300,000 listens per episode. Well, all of a sudden, we can get $1,000 per 100,000. We're making $3,000 per episode. So you can start paying to boost your numbers. And that's one of the things that Steven Crowder pointed out is a big problem too, because the little guys like us, we can't compete. We have no way to start because we're a non-starter. If we want to succeed and grow bigger, then we need to create something that creates money for us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, of course.
And we can't make something that makes money for us if the big guys are hyperinflating their numbers. So if their numbers look better than they are, so when we have 3,000 listeners, it means nothing.
Yeah.
When it should mean something. That actually 3,000 local listeners is big. Imagine having 3,000 people in an arena
anywhere.
And you fill out 3,000 people
Sell
and
an arena.
Talking to them, right? Personally, you're talking to them. That'd be a big deal.
It's like you're doing a show. I mean, imagine selling tickets for that to be able to get people to come in.
Imagine a 3,000 person theater and you're selling it. I mean,
even a buck a ticket to come in and listen to us.
Exactly.
Right?
And nobody will pay us because no advertisers will pay that to us.
You can't get your foot in the door.
Because they're going to look at our numbers and say, yeah, but I could advertise on this other show, which has 50,000 listeners. Yeah, but they probably don't.
Yeah.
They have 50,000 people who have listened to 6 seconds on an app somewhere.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really good point he made is that.
See, I didn't catch that point on the show that he was talking about.
And he said that's a big thing that really hurts the little guys. And I'm like, that's a really good point.
That is a really good point, yeah.
So I thought that was a big part for me.
But that's just kind of, I mean, as far as business though, isn't that just how business goes? I mean, even you could have the best intentions in mind. Let's just say, using a company like Daily Wire, but you're still a business and you still want to grow.
100%.
And there's a point you grow so big, and I mean, it's almost like you can't help yourself. You know what I mean? Almost like it just kind of takes over itself and just does what it does, right?
Yeah, and I think that was that's a good point. I think that I think the part that I agree with Steven Crowder on, though, is that he is saying that these big conservative companies, the problem is, and Bree helped me, my wife helped me realize this, is that he's making a moral point. He is saying,
yeah, of course,
it's a moral issue though, because you are saying that we are not that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but you are that. So I do get it is a business. But I agree with but I fully agree with Steven to say it is a business. However, you're doing these things that you're saying you're not doing. However, then I have to flip it and say, well, I don't agree with him because he also did some really stupid things, like recording his personal phone calls. And also, you could have just walked away from that and left it after the first video.
But Steven, like I said, I don't really watch his, but in the little that I have seen him, he does seem like he doesn't let a crisis go to waste.
No, he's
you know what I mean?
He's abrasive. Yeah.
He's gonna. Well, no, but he's also gonna use that for content. And I'm not saying he does that every time, but I mean, I think it's just one of those things that, hey, this is going on. Why not use it? Right?
Sure.
It's like, you know.
I mean, that's what if you think about it, that's what media people are. You know, everybody is.
Yeah, true.
That's literally what their job
we
is,
talk about things that happen in our lives and stuff here too. You know what
that's
I mean?
That's how you make content.
It is just content, but that's what's going on. Yeah, I mean, I didn't I didn't like the idea of him doing that. I thought it was very interesting though. I mean, I was glad he brought it up so we can see the other side. I think it goes to a lot. I think Tim might have made somebody made the point though. I mean, you know, the people that you like to listen to, I think ultimately, you know, if you enjoy them and if you trust them, whatever that means to you, then, you know, I don't think that should hurt you. Like, in other words, I know people are like, you know, scorched earth now. They're like, oh, forget Daily Wire. I cancel my subscription. You read all these comments, you know, after the fact. And, I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you still like them, you know, I mean, you know, you should, like, you know, there's a lot of people, right? There's they got Knowles, they got Shapiro,
they've got
Walsh, Candace Owens, they've got Walsh. And they're doing a lot of good work over there still.
They are.
And there's a lot of other companies that still are doing good work. I mean, even Fox puts out some good stuff. I mean, Tucker Carlson right now is like number one. I mean, he's blowing it up. But a lot of people have problems with Fox, you know.
Sure.
They're saying that, well, they're just another one of the, you know, big corporations.
Right.
And I think what you were alluding to, though, the problem is this, too. Here's another situation I find, though, and maybe shine some light here, Max. Okay, so... Yeah. Here's the deal, is that, you know, what you were talking about earlier, you have all these subscriptions. See, that's the problem we have to overcome. It's almost like...
That is a problem.
It's almost like, you know, you can't join everybody on one service because then you have... I think they talked about that, too. You have too many people fighting. How do you cut that pie?
Yep.
You know, how do you do it to where it's fair for everyone? And it probably won't be fair for everyone. But it does help the viewer or the listener, because then you have one place you can go to and listen to all the content, and usually for a pretty good price.
Yep.
But and this is the other thing that's happening with streaming too, with all these streaming channels. But then, you know, you're paying, you know, like you're saying, you're paying for the Mug Club, you're paying for Daily Wire, you pay for the Blaze, you pay for all these other guys. Next thing you know, you're paying like maybe $300 in subscriptions a month. You know, and in this environment, especially right now, I mean, with inflation, you're like, okay, I got to start cutting, chopping stuff down.
And so that's why I was a big fan. Like, I was actually super bummed when Crowder, because I love his like Change My Mind segments. So when he announced he was leaving the Blaze, I was like, son of a gun, because honestly, it means that I probably just won't watch his. Like, I can't pay for another subscription.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I have the Daily Wire and the Blaze, which encompass both of my main things, but I'm not going to pay a third one just for him. I'm a big fan of watching him, but, you know, unless it's like $10 a year, well, maybe, but it's not going to be because it's not worth it. But, like, the Blaze was $90 a year for everybody. I'm like, that was worth it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's tough to.
Well, now, you know, another podcast, No Agenda one. They go on this. It's Adam Curry and John C. Dvorak. They go on the value for value model, and we've talked about that here on previous podcasts. And I've kind of brought it up. I haven't really asked you what you thought about that, and this is a good forum to ask you. I mean, what do you think about that model? Where, in other words, you're basically saying to the person, you know, listen, if you're getting value out of this, and this is what we told him, if you get value out of this, hey, throw us a couple bucks or whatever you can do. If you can do it, that's great. I mean, if you get value out of this program, what do you think about that model? Do you think it's sustainable, or do you think that it's nice, but it only really works if you're big?
Yeah, I think I'll just say from our experience, it works as well as it has for this show, which is nobody Nobody gives us a penny. Now, all of you guys are listening.
Don't be cheap, Fresno.
Like we have quite a few listens for Fresno. Like, not bad. Got a couple thousand people who listen to our show.
Okay.
And nobody gives us a penny. And it's like, obviously, you listeners get some value for it. I mean, here's the thing: you spend an hour, 2 hours a week listening to us. You enjoy it.
Yeah.
But when we say, hey, just for $1 a week or $3 a month, join. We've had a bunch of different ways for people to try. Nobody bid. Cares.
Nobody.
One time, somebody sent me $100, and I was super stoked. I was like, "Oh wow!" And I looked, and it was my dad.
I think we did have somebody buy an ad one time, right?
We've had some ads. Yeah, we had the one ad.
Yeah.
But I really just think, and honestly, I haven't pushed ads for a while. I really wanted to do it. Then I was like, it might kind of change our show, and because there are ways to do ads.
Well, see, that's the thing, too. What kind of show does the audience want? I mean, right now, we're able to do a lot of the stuff we want to do. I mean, like I said, depending on the platform.
And that's the thing. Once you start taking a lot of ads, you really start having to limit what you can and can't do. Yeah. That's another thing. Even some of, I used to search every day. There's this thing called Podcorn, and they are an ad platform. Essentially, they centralize monetization areas. So you can go on, and all these companies will say, bid to do, you present why you can do our ad, and then if they choose you, you're now their ad person. However, one of the things is they all come with stipulations. Like, if you do it, then make sure your podcast follows these rules. And it was like, oh, well, crap. Like, all of a sudden, we wouldn't be able to talk about half the stuff we talk about.
Well, I mean, you couldn't probably go back, and that's the other thing, too. It'd be so time-consuming. You couldn't go back to our older content and even put ads on that unless you went through each episode and fine-tooth combed it.
Yep.
And then made sure it lined up. And then once you did that, then they would probably drop you, and then somebody else would say, hey, I'll do it, but then you need to these other things. You need to meet these other requirements.
So I guess, value for value, in theory, it would be great. You know? I mean, I would love if our listeners even gave 50 cents an episode, $1. If it was $1 a week, $1, something, that would be great. The idea, like the Patreon sort of model, that sort of idea.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, too, I have they with these platforms like Patreon and stuff. I just have a problem because, they always take their cut.
They always take their cut.
And we've seen recently, especially with Patreon, that if they don't like your content, they can hold the money, and then they just give it back to the people. I guess they eventually give it back to the people. But
it gets complicated. I think the hardest thing with things like Patreon and stuff work, I think, for tangible goods. There has been, and I get it. We're all victims of this. I'm a victim of this constantly. Like, we all assume that things, because if you go on Spotify, anywhere, most things are free. Digital content is essentially free.
Yeah.
So we just get used to, like, why would I pay these guys any money? Like, why would anybody in their mind pay us? Things like this should be free.
I do that too. I mean, I go on YouTube and you see will I go and join the Mug Club? Now, if I watch Crowder, I'll probably watch his show on YouTube.
Watch his stuff,
And then, the half hour's over. Every time I'm listening to Ben Shapiro and he goes, okay, now members, we're going to do another. I'm like, okay, see ya.
Yeah, you're like, forget it, I don't care.
I'm like, so I do understand that.
And we try to give extra value. I've done things like, hey, join us on the Discord so we can do special things. And so we try to give people, hey, you get additional value. Like, I'm not just saying you get the same things everybody else does for free. I'm saying you get the same things and then some.
I think,
and still people don't care.
And here's the other thing. I think it's not that they don't care. Here's what I'll say too. Now with that No Agenda, they do a lot of what they call No Agenda meetups, and usually it's put on by. Fresno has one, as a matter of fact, but it's put on by different people in different areas. My point is this, though. I think what it is it's the connection. And we've talked about maybe getting out in public and stuff before.
That's a big part.
And I think if the fans, it's one thing to listen to a person and you kind of feel disconnected from them. But if you go up and you meet them and you not know them, but you meet them and you feel a connection then it's a little different, And I think I think the value for value model would work is better, obviously, if there is that connection. I do agree with that. You know?
I hope so. We've even done like the, we have like on our site, you can pay for the uncensored versions of some of our podcasts. I'll put some podcasts up that we don't pay, that normal people don't get to listen to, and nobody cares. And there's some of my favorite parts, and like it's kind of like, all right. So we've tried all of this stuff. So I mean, I don't know. The other thing is though, if you say, hey, you have to pay for every episode, nobody's going to listen.
Well, and okay, and then also, going back to like Timcast, now he mentioned, we were talking about this not off air, but he was saying something about that he made $10 million, and we thought he meant a year, $10 million a year for his show, for all of his content that he makes, and he has employees, and he has facilities, and he has all that stuff that he pays for. But yeah, I mean, it's you hear that, and I think people just think, oh, they've got money, or they're getting donations, or they're getting ad money, or they're they think that every podcast is just getting money coming in. But I mean, that's not the case. That's just one guy. It's kind of like in everything. In sports, it's always the elite or the athletes are the one who make the NFL. Right. So it's not, all the other guys that played in college or played in high school even, don't even get to the college level. So there's all these different levels. And yeah, like for us, I mean, we're sitting here, we're doing this on our own time, and I'm not saying this to cry to the audience, but I just want to present a real picture here of what's going on, and especially from our side. People don't hear, they hear Timcast, or they hear these big guys talk big money, 50 million, 10 million, all that, right? What about the guys that are sitting in a little box with their own mics and computers and all their own equipment and just putting on a show because they love it, and they love it, but they would also, love to do it full time,
right?
If we could. But I mean, yeah, this is the other side of it, and I hope the audience has stayed with us on this, but to kind of get a good idea of what it really takes,
right? And what's the thing that I find, have you seen the whole new YouTube Super Chat deal? Have you seen those?
I haven't really.
On YouTube, there's these things called Super Chat stickers, so you can be live on YouTube.
I think you buy them, right?
Yeah, you can buy them, and essentially, I've seen people do things like, when you post comments, you can pay for a Super Chat comment.
Yeah, and then they read it usually.
Then you'll read it. And it's crazy, though. Like, I've seen some people are paying, throwing $100 at these guys, $300, $400.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and these are already the big content guys.
Yeah.
And so we also have this notion, and I think it's kind of
Is it real?
Well, the thing that messes with my mind is, it's like I'm watching like these guys like Super Gear is part of the Blaze. And people are throwing $100 at them to ask questions, but like nobody would throw that at us.
No.
And I'm like, I just find that interesting. It's like, look, they already have the budget to make the shows you like, but there's a lot of talent out there in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
But would you throw even $3 to ask me a question? No. And I'm like, so it also comes down to just fans in general. Like, are people willing? So I really do try to, the reason I have so many subscriptions to things is because I try to act what I speak.
Support.
So if I criticize, not our viewers, but kind of, I'm criticizing the fact that people don't do that, right? But at the same, so I try to make sure I'm not doing that. So that's why I was early on a Mug Club subscriber. Early on, I was a GBTV, which turned into Blaze. I was, because I was like, look, I support these guys. I want them to succeed, because I'll tell you what, if they don't succeed, then nobody has a platform anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, I love these guys. I love being able to hear and know and hear about news and history and things that I don't hear anywhere else. I'd like to be able to learn this stuff. And if I'm not going to be able to say, I'm willing to give you some of my money to do that, then eventually they're going to go, look, guys, this is not worth it. Like, eventually, if this gets more and more expensive and time consuming, eventually we're going to go, all right, instead, why don't we just meet up for coffee once a week, and just talk? So it's not like we're listening to this afterwards. So I feel like part of it is just, it's just tough. It's a tough world out there. And so I do agree. All of that to say, I agree a lot with what Steven says. I did not agree with how he did it. And I think he's kind of being a stubborn little baby at certain times. Kind of needs to grow up. At the same time, I feel like some people, the Blaze also at Daily Wire also need to grow up, because they didn't have to come out and all say like, it was us and our jobs are amazing. And I just feel like they should have been like, oh, well, nothing. I just don't think they should have responded to his video.
Oh, you mean the Daily Wire? Or
sorry. I feel like the Daily Wire shouldn't have responded. They should have just been
well. Listen, and in all fairness, I mean, as far as Candace Owen going, she was already scheduled to be on the show, and you know they were going to ask her. I mean, it was the hot topic, so yeah, they were going to ask her. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I agree. I mean, I don't really know Crowder's content that much and that well, but yeah, I do agree that sometimes I don't know, is he whining or is he not? I'm glad he brought a lot of stuff to light. At the same time, though, it would just be nice to see in a space where people, and it just seems to never happen, but it would be nice to see where people can help each other and say, not do this whole shredding. Now let's shred this and shred that and dig into this and dig into that. Because like you're saying, I mean, this space is very small as it is on the broad network, scope here. So, to have a few voices that you enjoy in this space, and then those people are tearing at each other. It's like, oh man, come on, guys, come on.
And like, I think Candace, didn't she say that she had, was it on Timcast where she said she has some information about Steven that he wouldn't like coming out or something? I'm like, are you threatening to release information about
everybody?
him?
Well, here's the other thing. And then she got caught. Supposedly, she said she would never record someone. And then they just pulled out video, basically, of not her admitting it, but another girl had said, "Did you record me?" And she kind of, gave at least the impression that she might have. It's like, listen, okay, we all do crazy stuff. We're not all perfect. That's fine. But let's not play this tit for tat game. Right. Oh, I'm going to get you now. You got my guy. I'm going to get your guy. It's like, come on, can we all get along?
Yeah, it's just the way
I think there's enough. I think there's enough in this space, and I think that younger creators and or smaller creators, they should be able to kind of help bring these guys in.
Yeah.
Too at the same time, show a model, show the way it's supposed to be done. Because even for us, like you say, you look at a lot of stuff. I look at a lot of creators, and I'm like, how did they do that? How did they get there? What are they doing?
Right.
And Tim makes a very good point. And that's why he says, listen, that's why I'm staying independent. I'm just going to stay independent,
which is smart, and
do my own thing. And very smart. So I kind of like that idea too. Is you don't necessarily align with anyone. You just kind of stay independent and do your own thing. But
now Candace also said, which I can't tell if this is her being. I'm hoping it's her being honest, or I don't know what this is. This is her most recent statement.
Is this on Twitter or something?
No, she said this on her show.
Okay.
She said, over the weekend, I was given a lot more information regarding Steven Crowder, a lot more background information regarding what could have possibly led to this moment. And not to my surprise at all, obviously, this really doesn't have anything to do with the Daily Wire. And his actions are a symptom of something much larger. And I want to choose my words very carefully here, because I'm not angry anymore. Steven has a lot going on, I guess is the best way to say it. He has a lot going on, and that should be clear, because people don't do stuff like this. If there's not a problem going on in their lives, you don't sell out your friend, you don't record conversations. These things are actions of individuals that are perhaps acting out of desperation. You have to dig deeper. You have to look deeper to fully understand the picture of why somebody might do that. And it's certainly not because somebody's upset with a $50 million contract. And because I now am more aware of certain information, rather than being angry, I would like to implore my audience and everybody that isn't paying attention in this situation not to condemn him, but to pray for him. I can't tell. He says, and she says, and I am certain that in the near future, more information will come out. I do not think it is my place to say more than that. Well, probably what I should say is I am unsure at this moment if it is my place to say more than that. So I can't tell if that is her being like kind of a coy backslap, sort of backhanded. I don't know what that is, or she's being honest.
That almost sounds like the corp was like, listen, you kind of went off a little bit. We don't want that image, and let's do damage control.
It's kind of a weird comment though, because it's like, why would you then come out and also say Steven's got a lot going on in his life? I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's something serious. It's like, that's a weird thing to also say.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's kind of like when you're just making an excuse for, but to backtrack essentially, because she said a lot of strong stuff in that interview, but I think she's trying to backtrack it now a little bit, because a lot of people said she came off mean. I mean, really
came off mean, yeah.
That's what I felt in that Timcast episode. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. This drama is
it's weird.
It's good to kind of know the inner workings, and maybe it's good that people do talk about this industry and what really is going on, and you know, and for you, and I know we're running on time here, but and for you, run up against time, for you to bring up the fact that I mean, listen, for the smaller shows and stuff, I mean, this isn't like we're just raking in ad money, like just because you see these other guys doing it, the big
just
guys.
Because you listen to our show and it's polished and we sound great and
it's perfecto,
highly it's because
professional,
it's professional and amazing. It's not because we're making a lot of money, guys.
It's because we do it out of the love.
Although what is funny though, I did have to say, I was listening to some of the Timcast stuff and I was thinking to myself, we do sound better than their show.
Interesting.
Did you not think so? Their audio's kind of all over the place. We talk on top of each other, but they're always talking on top of each other. They're
we used to do that. I think we've gotten better at that.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where they kind of sound like they're way over here.
Yeah. Or they're doing other things. They're reaching for things and talking and
all
stuff.
The time. And I was like, you guys sound not any better than we sound in our studio. So I thought and also our intros are better. We're just kind of I think we come out much cleaner.
We're put together, yeah.
Their ads just start in the middle of it'll be like a sentence. Somebody will be in the middle of talking, and all of a sudden it'll be like, and then they'll come
for an ad.
And then it will come back in the middle of the sentence. And I'm like, you guys couldn't even put ad spaces in there. Jeez Louise.
I don't even think they care about that. Yeah, they're just at the point they're like, just throw them in anywhere.
It's crazy. Yeah. I'm like, you guys just pick some ad types.
Yeah.
Pick middle of the show to say we're doing an ad. It's just in the middle of sentences.
Interesting, yeah.
So,
anyways. It's true, man. It is true. I mean, I think we really do a great show, and I think we do a great show for Fresno here. And that being said, people, value for value. Come on.
Yeah, that all being said, we are out of time. Thank you for listeing to the Eric.
Buy us a cup of coffee,
for the love of God.
Come on.
Just a coffee.
We need a caffeine here. We need some caffeine in this studio.
Check us out. NoFocusRadio.com. There you can find a lot of cool stuff. You can listen and subscribe. You can buy us a coffee and join the club. Couple of options there for $1, $2, $5, or even $10, all with different things. You can get exclusive access to our Discord where you can watch us live. Vote on Don's polls. Check out our other shows. There's also a link on there for Pardon the Intermission. That's the Doorman's podcast.
Yeah, entertainment
Check that out. You can join our Discord server there. There's also an area on the bottom there if you have an idea, if you want to pitch an event, all that sort of stuff. Or heck, if you want to, sponsor us, click there too.
And we hope to get some live events here going.
We do
in this year, 2023.
Yeah, we're looking at something in July, a big one.
To get out there and meet the people. Maybe we need, instead of mug, we need a tumbler.
Oh, I like that. Tumblr Club.
Tumblr
we should totally rip them off. The Tumblr Club. So yeah, check that out. I did promise that I'd read a review from
let's do it.
From some of our subscribers and whatever those are called. People who leave reviewers. Here we go. Here's a here we go. This is from there we go. This is from, it says episode 65. This is an old one here.
Oh, wow.
It says, you guys are great. I couldn't stop laughing. Thanks for interviewing two pretty cool and special people. Keep up the fun work. I'm a fan.
Ooh.
Thank you very much, T-Man104.
Thank you, T-Man.
Appreciate it very much.
Love it.
Yeah, perfect 5-star reviews out there on
That is awesome.
Podcast. So check us out, please, everybody. Thank you very much for listening. Tune in again. We'll have another show for you soon. That's it. Adios.
All right. Take care.